My wife secretly sold our family home for $350, $0 behind my back, and took half the proceeds, then turned around and filed for divorce claiming I'm the one at fault. Now she's fighting me over custody and half of a $1.2 million inheritance I never knew she knew about. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. It all started with little things, missed calls, strange texts, late nights she wouldn't explain. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself she was stressed or busy with work. But then I noticed her phone was always on silent, and she was oddly defensive when I asked about her whereabouts. It was subtle but enough to make me suspicious. Her name, Emily. We'd been married for 8 years, and honestly I thought we had a good life, 2 kids, a house in the suburbs, steady jobs. We weren't perfect. But I trusted her until I didn't. It was about 3 weeks ago when I started noticing her behavior shift. She'd leave her phone in her purse all the time. When I'd ask to look at it, she'd get defensive, say I was being paranoid. But I knew better. Something was off. Then one day I came home early from work, expecting to surprise her with dinner. Instead, I caught her sneaking out of the guest room. She'd been acting strangely for days, always shutting the door when she was on her phone. I saw her hurriedly hide something behind the pillow on the bed, her phone, I think. I didn't say anything at first, just watched her leave the house in a rush. It was like a punch to the gut. That night, I couldn't sleep. I decided to do some digging. I found a few suspicious text messages on her phone, flirty, suggestive stuff with a guy named Mark. It was obvious they'd been seeing each other for a while. The messages weren't just casual, they were intimate, almost like a secret world she kept from me. I was stunned. How could she do this, after everything we built? I confronted her the next morning. I asked her outright about Mark, about the late nights, the secret calls. Her reaction was classic Emily. She rolled her eyes, dismissed it as me being paranoid, said I was overthinking. Then she threw in some lies about how I was neglecting her, how I was never there for her emotionally. That was her go-to excuse when she wanted to justify her actions. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw through her. The worst part. She denied everything, said I was imagining things, that Mark was just a friend she was helping out, but I had the proof. Her phone had more messages, and I found receipts from a hotel they'd stayed at last month. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just a fling, it was a full-blown affair. And I was the last to know. I felt my stomach drop, a mix of anger and heartbreak. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. I wanted to scream. I'd always been the good guy, the one who worked hard, paid the bills, kept everything together. Meanwhile, she was out cheating on me, lying through her teeth. I started to think about everything I'd done for her, how I'd sacrificed to give her a good life. And now I was just a fool. That night I sat alone in the dark, going over everything. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I needed answers, and I needed to know how deep this betrayal went. Honestly, I was furious, but there was also this sinking feeling like I'd been played for a fool and I didn't even see it coming. The next morning, I decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. I called her at work, told her I knew everything. Her reaction: she snapped at me, called me jealous, said I was crazy. She even accused me of cheating myself, which was laughable. I knew she was lying, gaslighting me like she always did when she wanted to turn things around. But I didn't care about her lies anymore. I was done pretending. Now I'm stuck in this mess, trying to figure out what to do next. The betrayal cut deep, and the fact that she's fighting me over custody and a big inheritance just makes it worse. I never saw this coming. All I wanted was a stable life, a partner I could trust. Instead, I got a wife who was sneaking around, selling our house behind my back and lying about everything. This is where I stand now, hurt, betrayed, and furious. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't be the fool anymore. After that confrontation, everything started moving fast, too fast. I realized I couldn't just sit around and let the lies pile up anymore. I needed to get to the bottom of how deep this went, especially with her trying to spin it around, acting like I was the one at fault. But the thing that really knocked me out of my chair was the discovery of her selling our house behind my back. That's when I knew this wasn't just a fling. This was outright betrayal on a scale I couldn't even imagine. It all started when I noticed the house was listed for sale. At first, I thought maybe she was trying to downsize or move into something smaller. But then I found out she had done it without telling me, sold our family home for $350, $0, and took half the proceeds. I was floored. How could she do that? We had plans for that house, memories. It wasn't just bricks and mortar, it was our life. And she just sold it like it was nothing. I demanded to see the paperwork. Turns out she'd been working with some shady real estate agent she'd met through her friend Mark. I couldn't believe it. She'd taken the money, split it with him, and left me in the dark. When I confronted her about it, she shrugged and said she needed the money because I wasn't supporting her emotionally and she deserved a better life. That's when the rage really kicked in. She was lying about everything, about her affair, about the house, about her reasons. It was all manipulation, and I was just the fool who trusted her. But what really threw me for a loop was the inheritance. I'd never told her about it, but I found out she knew about it all along. Somehow, she'd gotten wind of a $1.2 million inheritance my grandfather left me, money I hadn't even told her I knew about. She was fighting me over custody of the kids and half of that inheritance now. I couldn't believe she'd go that far. The inheritance was supposed to be for my future, for my kids, but she was already planning to take it all. Her lies kept piling up. She claimed she was just trying to protect her interests, that I'd been neglecting her and the kids, that she deserved better. But I knew the real story. She'd been cheating, lying, and scheming the entire time. I felt like I'd been played from the start, like I was some sucker who thought I had a normal life. Instead, I had a wife who was secretly selling our home, hiding money, and scheming to take everything from under me. I started to gather evidence. I dug through bank statements, found suspicious transfers, and even hired a private investigator. It turned out she'd been meeting Mark at different hotels, always with cash, always quick in and out. She'd been planning her escape for months, if not longer. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. How did I miss all these signs? I'd always thought I knew her, but now I saw her for what she really was, a liar and a thief. The emotional toll was overwhelming. I felt betrayed, stupid, and angry. How could she do this? How could she sell our house, steal our money, and then turn around and accuse me of neglect? I was furious. I wanted to tear her apart, but I also knew I had to stay rational. I started to plan my next moves. I contacted a lawyer to see what my options were. I needed to protect my kids, my inheritance, and whatever was left of my dignity. In the meantime, she kept up her act, pretending everything was fine. She was bitchy, dismissive, and constantly lying. She told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was jealous of her secret life. She even accused me of cheating, which was laughable considering what I'd uncovered. I knew better. I knew she'd been cheating on me, scheming behind my back, and now she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. I didn't tell her I knew about the inheritance yet. Honestly, I was still processing that myself, but I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. I couldn't let her get away with this. The more I uncovered, the more I realized she was a master manipulator, always spinning her stories, always hiding something. I felt like I'd been played, and I was furious at myself for not seeing it sooner. Now I'm in a war I never signed up for. She's fighting me over custody, over the money, over everything. And I'm left trying to pick up the pieces, wondering how I let it all happen. I keep asking myself, how could the woman I loved turn into this? How did I miss all the signs? And most of all, how do I move forward from this level of betrayal? I'm angry, hurt, and exhausted, but I know I have to stay strong for me, for the kids. I just wish I'd seen it coming earlier. Getting all the facts together was only the beginning. Once I knew she'd sold our house behind my back, I realized I had to act fast. I wasn't about to let her walk away with half the proceeds, the inheritance, and full custody of the kids without a fight. I hired a lawyer, and from that point on, everything turned into a chess game. Every move, every word, every document. I felt like I was in a war I did want to be part of, but I had no choice. The first thing I did was file for an emergency hearing. I needed to stop her from doing anything else, like draining accounts, transferring money, or worse, trying to leave the state with the kids. The lawyer told me I had a solid case because she'd already sold the house without my consent, and I had proof of her affair and her scheming about the inheritance. The court granted a temporary restraining order, which meant she couldn't sell, transfer, or hide any more assets without my approval. It was a small victory, but I knew this was just the start. Meanwhile, I started digging even deeper into her finances. I found multiple bank accounts she hadn't told me about, hidden, I guess, to keep her plans secret. There were transfers to her sister, payments to Mark, and even some cash withdrawals at places I'd never seen her visit. It was obvious she'd been planning this for months. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how much she'd lied to me, how she'd been orchestrating her escape from the start. Her reaction to all this was predictable. She was furious, calling me controlling, paranoid, and jealous. She told the lawyer I was trying to ruin her and accused me of trying to keep her from her happiness. I just shook my head. She had no idea how much I knew, how much I'd uncovered. I kept my cool in court, but inside I was boiling. I knew she was trying to manipulate the system, but I had enough evidence to make sure she wouldn't get away with it. Then came the discovery of her plans to fight me over the inheritance. She claimed I was hiding money, that I'd lied about how much I had. But I had bank statements and legal documents proving I'd never touched that inheritance, money I never even told her about until now. She was trying to spin it as if I was trying to cheat her out of her fair share, but it was clear she wanted control over everything. She saw the inheritance as her ticket to a new life, and she was willing to do anything to get her hands on it. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I was losing my mind, betrayed by someone I loved, fighting a war I never signed up for. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see her true nature earlier. Every day was a roller coaster of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I'd wake up feeling like I was in a nightmare, then remind myself I had to stay strong for the kids, for myself. I couldn't let her break me, even if she was trying her best to do just that. I also started to think about the bigger picture. This wasn't just about the house or the inheritance. It was about trust, respect, and honesty, things I thought we shared. Turns out I was living with someone who had been lying to my face for years. I wondered how much I really knew her and if I ever truly knew her at all. The woman I married, the woman I thought I knew, was gone, replaced by someone willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate her way to what she wanted. The kids. That was the hardest part. I didn't want them to see me like this, angry and broken. But I also knew I had to be strong for them. I didn't want her to use this against me, too. Turn them against me. I stayed calm when I talked to her about custody, trying to keep the focus on what's best for the children. But inside, I was seething. I felt betrayed not just as a husband, but as a father. How could she do this to us? How could she put her own greed and lies above family? As I sat in the lawyer's office, reviewing all the evidence I'd gathered, I realized I was in a fight not just for my money or the house, but for my dignity. I knew I had to be strategic, smart, and relentless. I couldn't let her get away with this. Every lie she told, every scheme she cooked up, I'd be there to expose it. I was starting to see the pattern, her manipulations, her lies, her greed. And I was determined to come out of this stronger, even if it meant tearing down everything I thought I knew about her. I won't pretend it's easy. Every day is a battle, and the emotional scars run deep. But I've learned that betrayal cuts the deepest when you least expect it. I thought I knew my wife, my partner, but she turned out to be someone I didn't recognize. Now I'm fighting for what's rightfully mine, for my future and for my kids' stability. I don't know how this ends, but I do know I won't let her win without a fight. Not this time. The court hearings kept coming, and with each one I felt like I was unraveling more of her lies. She was doing her best to paint herself as the victim, saying I was controlling, that I was emotionally abusive, that I'd been neglecting her and the kids. Honestly, it was laughable. She'd spent months sneaking around, selling our house, hiding money, and now she's trying to play the innocent wife. The more she lied, the more I realized how deep her deception went. She kept insisting she deserved half of the inheritance and the house, even though I had all the proof showing she had no legal claim to the inheritance. I had bank statements, legal documents, and witnesses that confirmed I'd kept that money separate. But she'd twist everything, claiming I was hiding assets and that I'd been cheating her out of her fair share. It was a clear attempt to manipulate the system and turn it in her favor. I could see through her every word, but it still hurt to hear her lie so convincingly. Meanwhile, I was fighting to keep custody of the kids. She was making wild claims about how I was an unfit parent, how I'd be a danger to them because I was too strict or emotionally distant. She played the victim card hard, saying she was the real caregiver, the one who always put the kids first. But I knew better. I'd been there every step of their lives, helping with homework, taking them to soccer, making sure they had everything they needed. She, on the other hand, was out with Mark, scheming her escape. The thing that really stuck with me was the day I found out she'd been secretly planning to leave the country with the kids. She hired a lawyer in another state, started looking into international custody laws, and even bought plane tickets. She had it all mapped out, ready to disappear. I felt a cold rush through my body. I couldn't let her do that, not without a fight. That's when I hired a private investigator to follow her, get proof of her plans, and monitor her movements. I needed all the ammunition I could get. One day, I caught her in a lie that was so blatant I couldn't believe I'd missed it before. She told me she was going to visit her sister out of town for a couple of days. I checked her phone, and there were messages to mark plans to meet up, talk about getting everything settled, and even some code about leaving the country. She'd been planning her escape for weeks, maybe months. I was furious. How could she be so reckless? How could she betray me and the kids like this? The emotional toll was brutal. I'd go from feeling rage to deep sadness, then back again. I kept asking myself over and over, how did I not see this coming? Was I so blind that I missed all the signs? I kept replaying moments, trying to find the cracks in our relationship where she'd hidden all this. The truth was, I hadn't wanted to see it. I'd always been the one working, providing, trying to keep everything together. Meanwhile, she'd been planning her exit, secretly selling our house, hiding money, and lying to my face. I started to question everything. Was I a fool to trust her? Did I ever really know her at all? The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who was manipulative, selfish, and willing to lie her way out of everything. The more I uncovered, the more I realized I had to prepare for the worst. I couldn't let her leave with the kids or wipe out my inheritance. I had to fight for my rights, my future, and my sanity. I also realized that I couldn't do this alone. I needed support, friends, family, and a good lawyer. I confided in a few close friends about what was happening, and surprisingly, some of them said they'd never seen her act like this before. That was a small comfort, knowing I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed. But it also made me more determined. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to be smart, patient, and relentless. Every day now feels like walking a tightrope. One wrong move and she could take everything. Our house, the kids, the inheritance. I have to stay focused. I've learned that in situations like this, your emotions can either be your strength or your weakness. I choose to stay strong. I can't let her win. I won't. The truth is, I'm exhausted, mentally, emotionally, physically. But I also know that I have to keep fighting for what's right, no matter how much she tries to manipulate the system or gaslight me. The worst part, knowing she's out there planning her next move while I'm stuck trying to hold everything together. I keep asking myself if I'll ever really understand her, if I'll ever get closure. But deep down, I know this isn't about closure anymore. It's about standing up for myself and my kids. That's what matters now. I've lost trust in her, but I won't lose myself. I'll keep fighting, keep digging, and keep pushing until I get to the truth. And when I do, I'll make damn sure she pays for what she's done. The legal battles are draining me, but I've come to realize that this fight isn't just about money or custody. It's about reclaiming my life from someone I thought I knew, someone who turned out to be a master manipulator and liar. Every day I wake up, I feel the weight of betrayal heavy on my shoulders, but I also feel a strange sense of clarity. I never thought I'd have to fight so hard just to keep what's mine, but here I am, digging in my heels. One of the most shocking moments came when I finally got access to her financial records. I knew she'd been hiding money, but seeing it in black and white was another level. She transferred thousands into accounts I didn't even know existed, accounts she set up in her sister's name, in fake companies, in offshore accounts. She'd been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. And the thing that made me angriest was realizing she'd been lying about everything, about her income, her savings, her intentions. She'd been building a backup plan while pretending to be the perfect wife and mother. Meanwhile, she kept trying to turn the kids against me. She'd tell them I was mean or strict, trying to make me look like the bad guy. I knew her game. She wanted to manipulate the situation, to make me look like the villain so she could get full custody. I was determined not to let her succeed. I spent hours talking to my lawyer about how to present myself, how to prove I was the better parent, and how to expose her lies. She also started making wild accusations, saying I was physically abusive, that I'd been neglecting the children, that I was an unfit father. I was stunned. I knew she was grasping at straws, trying to deflect from her own betrayal. I had witnesses who could testify to my character, my involvement in the kids' lives. But it hurt, seeing her stoop so low, twisting everything around to serve her own agenda. I felt like I was fighting not just her, but a whole system that seemed to favor her because she was the victim. The most alarming thing was her attempt to get the court to approve her international move with the children. She'd already booked flights, got passports ready, and hired an attorney in another state to prepare for full custody. I couldn't believe how far she'd go. I hired my investigator again, and sure enough, he caught her meeting with people who were helping her plan her escape. It was a shock. She was serious about leaving everything behind, kids included. That's when I made a decisive move. I filed a motion to prevent her from leaving the state with the kids, citing her ongoing manipulations, her secret plans, and her financial deception. I also requested a full accounting of her assets and a detailed visitation schedule. I knew it was a long shot, but I had to try. The court granted a temporary order that kept her from taking the kids out of the jurisdiction until a full hearing could be held. Throughout this process, I felt a mixture of anger, frustration, and despair. I questioned myself. How did I let things get so out of control? Why didn't I see her true nature sooner? But I also knew I couldn't dwell on the past. I had to focus on the present, on protecting my kids and my rights. I started seeing a therapist to help process everything. Because honestly, this betrayal has shattered my sense of trust, not just in her but in people in general. I've learned that she's willing to do whatever it takes to get what she wants, lying, cheating, selling our home, planning to run away. But I'm not going down without a fight. I've become more strategic, more cautious. I double-checked every detail, kept detailed records, and stayed one step ahead of her. I've also realized that I can't change her, but I can control how I respond. I can choose to be strong, to stand my ground, and to do what's best for my kids. This whole ordeal has changed me forever. I don't see her the same way anymore. I see her as someone who's capable of the worst kind of betrayal, someone who put her greed and lies above everything else. And I've learned that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I've faced down lies, deception, and manipulation, and I refuse to let her destroy everything I've worked for. Now I just wait for the next court date, knowing she'll try more tricks, more lies. But I've got enough evidence to expose her. I've drawn a line in the sand, and I'm determined to see this through. I want justice, not just for me but for my kids. They deserve to have a dad who's present, honest, and unbroken by betrayal. And I will make sure they get that, even if it costs everything I have. Now, as I sit here reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize how much I've been changed, not just physically exhausted but emotionally scarred in ways I never expected. The betrayal by Emily, the woman I loved and trusted, has left a mark that won't fade overnight. But amidst all the chaos, I've also found a strange sense of clarity. I learned that trust, once broken, is painfully hard to rebuild, but resilience can come from even the deepest wounds. The court hearings finally concluded, and the judge ruled in my favor. Emily's plans to leave the state with the kids were halted, and she was ordered to return the money from the house sale, along with a detailed accounting of all her hidden assets. She was also granted limited visitation rights, but under strict supervision. The inheritance remains protected, and I was awarded full custody of the children. It's not the perfect ending I envision, but it's a start. My victory, however small, in a war I never wanted to fight. What hit me hardest was seeing the kids' faces during the court proceedings. They're innocent in all this, caught in the middle of adult chaos. I promised myself I'd do everything to shield them from the worst of it. They deserve stability, love, and honesty, things I intend to give them, even if I have to rebuild from the ruins of what was lost. In the aftermath, I've been working on healing myself. I've cut off contact with Emily completely. Her lies, her schemes, they've shown me that sometimes people are capable of things I never thought possible. I've also started therapy, not just to cope but to understand how I got so blindsided and how to rebuild my trust in others. It's a slow process, but I'm making progress. Looking back, I see this as a brutal but necessary lesson. I trusted her blindly, believing we had a solid foundation, but she was building her own escape plan all along. I realize now that I should have paid closer attention, been more vigilant. But I also understand that some betrayals are so deep and so calculated that even the most cautious person can be caught off guard. The most important thing I've learned is that I am stronger than I thought. I never thought I'd have to go through something like this, but I did, and I survived. I'm rebuilding my life piece by piece, focusing on my kids, my career, and my own well-being. I've come to accept that not everyone is who they appear to be, and that sometimes the greatest act of courage is walking away from someone who no longer values honesty and loyalty. To anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, trust your instincts, keep records, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Betrayal hurts, but it also reveals a lot about the people around us. The key is to stay strong, seek support, and remember that you're not alone. Life throws curveballs, but even after the worst storms, there's a chance to rebuild and find peace again. Honestly, I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm done being the fool. I've learned my lesson. Trust is earned, not given. And now I'm focused on creating a new chapter, one where honesty, integrity, and love are what truly matter. The pain will fade, the scars will remain, but I'll keep moving forward. Because at the end of the day, I know I've fought for what's right, and that's all I can ask of myself.